Hey everybody, happy Tuesday, December 15th. I am going to share with you guys some books today because I want to. But today, the reason being, what kind of prompted it was today is the National Bill of Rights Day, and it's also the final GOP debate for the year is on tonight, so I'm feeling especially patriotic. I'm wearing my red. I'm a red mama living in a blue state, so I am representing at home by myself. Anyways, I wanted to share some of my favorite books with you today in light of what today was. And if you don't know what National Bill of Rights Day is, it was established back in 1941 by FDR. He declared it kind of to commemorate what had happened in Virginia in 1791 when they became the 11th state to ratify the 10 amendments. And basically it's just a day to remember our rights and our rights to free speech, which is important and valued and a blessing. So it's National Bill of Rights Day. And I get geeked up about debates. Pretty much no one else I know does. And so I tune in by myself, eat a bunch of snacks, get really excited. And so I, along with many people who have been thinking so much lately about all the political upheaval and national upheaval really that's going on right now, I've been thinking a lot about history and the history of our nation and the history of politics in our nation. And it's there's just so much going on right now. The political climate seems to be so just crazy. I don't even know a better word for it. And people seem to be so polarized, and so it's really caused me to look back in our nation's history to when it's been like that before, what happened, what caused it, what the outcome was, and to learn from our failures and learn from our successes as a nation. So I've really been digging into the history books lately just for my own, gratification and enjoyment. And I thought I would share some of my favorite historical and political fiction and nonfiction with you. I'm only sharing 6 books. I could really share, dozens of wonderfully written historical accounts and biographies and autobiographies, but I'm going to just share 6. They're not necessarily even my favorite. They're just ones that I think are good, and I think that cover a good range, and perhaps with the Christmas season upon us, if you have Amazon Prime, you might see something that piques your interest or you think might be suitable for a gift for a family member or a friend who enjoys historical fiction or historical nonfiction, and how it kind of touches on politics and America. So you could order it. I ordered something yesterday morning on Amazon at 6 a.m. before the kids got up, and it was at my door by 8:30. So you can even sometimes have same-day shipping. So what I'll do is I will leave the links below of these books, the links to Amazon, in case you're interested. But these are just 6 I picked out that I thought might interest some people. They've certainly been inspirational and educational for me as a civilian, just reading them and learning more about America. So here goes nothing, and these are just 6 that I randomly kind of picked from my bookshelves that I thought might interest you. In no particular order, we'll start with this one. This one, actually, I didn't randomly pick. I specifically picked this one because before the Christmas break, the girls and I wrapped our study on the American Revolution and the birth of America in the United States of America. And so I found this book at this time particularly interesting. It's by Newt Gingrich and his co-author William Forstchen. I always say it. I don't ever know how to say it. written several books about World War II and the Civil War, but I found this one particularly interesting. I find George Washington fascinating, and it's a really, really good book. It kind of follows three different key players in the Revolution: Thomas Paine, George Washington, and Jonathan Van Dorn, who was a private in Washington's army. And it's great. To try men's souls, I would recommend it. And really, I like all of Newt Gingrich's books. I think they're really well written, historically accurate, and I appreciate his voice in historical fiction and nonfiction. So I would recommend this one for sure. The second one I'll share is The Reagan Diaries by Ronald Reagan. It's a compilation of his diaries put together by Doug Brinkley. And I think I was young when he was president. I don't know. I don't remember much of his presidency, but I've learned a lot about him since I've begun to study history, and he is. I really am drawn to him as a person and as a president, and I feel really intrigued and compelled to learn more about him and his wife Nancy and their relationship, both outside of the White House and in the White House, and even after his passing. It's very interesting to me, their relationship, and how much he loved her and cared for her, how much they really were endeared to each other. And so this gives you great insight into his two terms, but also in his relationship with his wife. And he's a fascinating individual to me. And he's not just fascinating as an individual, but as president, how he really was so admired by people on both sides of the political spectrum. And you know, right now with all of just seems like political turmoil and how it is hard to find political leaders that are really able to work together and compromise and just even be kind to their fellow leaders. He's fascinating because he really was able to work together with those he didn't agree with, and also have their respect and admiration. I find that really fascinating. It seems to me that hasn't happened in my lifetime as I've watched presidents. It's just the lack of respect for even the position of president is at an all-time high, and has been for a while. And so I really I enjoyed learning about him as a person, and I'm still trying to figure out what it was about him, aside from his conviction and great ideas as a president, what it was about him that made him able to get along so well with people on both sides of the aisle. He's fascinating, and his story is fascinating, both before he was in office and when he was in office. So I would recommend it. Now, I wouldn't recommend it to just anybody because it's fat. It'll take you a bit. And there's some parts where you're just like, oh my gosh, snooze fest, because it's a lot of just the ins and outs of, who he's getting together with and his briefings and whatnot. Because it is just that, it's a diary. So, but if you are at all, or someone you know is at all interested in the lives of the presidents, this is a great book. The next one I would recommend is Donald Rumsfeld, Known and Unknown. It's a memoir he wrote. He's a really interesting gentleman, and one that's been in the middle of politics for decades. He worked in the Eisenhower administration, and then he was in Congress during Kennedy and Johnson. So he's seen a lot go down. And so it's interesting to hear his perspective and where he's coming from. I prefer memoirs and autobiographies because it's coming from people who actually were involved in many of these huge moments in American history, and their personal accounts mean a lot to me because they were there, they experienced it. It's not necessarily, a secondhand opinion or a journalist writing what they think might have happened or what they think people may have been experiencing. It's from the person who is actually experiencing it. And so I really enjoyed this. I really like Donald Rumsfeld, and I enjoyed reading his perspectives and his thoughts. And I would recommend this book. Okay, the next ones I will recommend are two ladies. This is called Eleanor Roosevelt. It's volume 1. There's 2, I think. I haven't made it that far. Again, big. And then Abigail Adams by Woody Holton. Both of these are fascinating reads. I would say especially for the ladies. Both of these women were instrumental in advancing women's rights and basically building a voice for women, especially Abigail Adams when women were considered the property of their husbands. She was a instrumental part in, working against sex discrimination. And she also was just amazing. I mean, she had a billion children, was left alone a lot of the time when her husband, the second president, was gone and traveling. And she had all these kids. She had a home she had to take care of. She was working on all these different issues that she felt were important. And she just did it. And really a pioneer of women's rights. And when I say women's rights, what I am especially intrigued with was advancing the rights of women being considered equal to men. And that was unheard of in her time. So she was completely dismissed most of the time. But she kept at it. She kept working hard and making friends with extremely influential people to advance the cause. And then Eleanor Roosevelt came from, a really difficult family background and, took a lot of the lessons she learned and made differences later that she thought needed to be made just through grit and determination. And she really is one of the most... sorry, I thought I heard one of my children. She really was a instrumental figure in the women's rights movement. Trying to really work towards women being considered and recognized as equal to men in society, in their pay, in their treatment, and whatnot. So both of these are good. They're both big and they're long reads, but they're really, really good. I would recommend them. And then the last one's just fun. I got it when I was in Washington, D.C. a couple years ago. I needed a book to read on the plane, and it was in the, I think the bookstore in the airport. And so it's Best Little Stories from the White House. It's just fun. It's, nothing too complex, easy read. They're short they're vignettes, basically, little short chapters, essentially. And it has about 100 stories in it, and it goes all the way back to basically present. In fact, I think it covers, let's see here. It covers all the way up to President Obama. So it just tells fun, weird, random trivia and fun stories that happen, sad stories that happened. This might not be for everybody. I'm fascinated with basically anything political. I'm fascinated with the White House, with the inner workings, what goes on. And so these kind of stories they interest me. And they're fun. Random stuff. Okay, so Theodore Roosevelt's children once snuck their pony upstairs in the White House elevator to cheer up their sick brother. And so it'll tell a whole, John Quincy Adams was known to skinny tip in the Potomac. There you go. So maybe it's more interesting now. I don't know, but it's fun. And I would recommend it. It's a fun stocking stuffer if you have someone like me who enjoys that kind of read. yeah, I really like it. So, yeah, 6 books that I would recommend. Abigail Adams, Eleanor Roosevelt, Donald Rumsfeld's memoir, Known and Unknown, The Reagan Diaries, it's big, and To Try Men's Soul, about the American Revolution. Like I said, this is 6 of dozens and dozens that I love, but I thought I'd share these, and I hope to do another video sharing some great historical books for kids. But these ones are just for adults. I think some teenagers could read, especially Newt Gingrich's One to Try Men's Souls, especially if they're studying that time period in history. It would be fascinating for them to read it. And I love the Abigail Adams. That's my favorite one of this grouping, actually. That would be fascinating, too, for, I think, a high schooler to read. Totally different perspective than what people are growing up with now. I mean, it's a totally different life. So it would be good. So I'll put the lists down. I also think I would like to do a video in the future of historical nonfiction or autobiographies of presidents that I really, really loved but wouldn't have voted for. I'm finding, as I continue to read, especially accounts of presidents, some of my very favorite have been books either penned by the person, the gentleman himself, or a biography about him that I wouldn't have expected to like as much because I don't politically align with that president. But they ended up being some of my, favorite stories and accounts. So I think I might do a video about that. I think that it is important for us to educate and read and learn from voices that we don't necessarily agree with. I think especially in the current political climate, we dehumanize those that we don't agree with. We write them off and we don't actually give people enough chance to explain themselves, and we don't give one another enough of a chance to learn from one another and our differing views, and especially with presidents in the past, many of them write their books and they write them after they have been president and they've learned from successes and failures that they had. And it's fascinating to hear what it was like to be this, the leader of the free world and have to make these weighty decisions, knowing that it's going to impact an entire nation, and oftentimes I don't think we give these men enough credit. And I think that some of my favorite books have been written about or by presidents who I would not have voted for. So I might do a video on that. There's quite a few. So that might be coming in the future. But for right now, these are the 6 I wanted to recommend. I'll leave the links below. And I hope that you might try one of them. I would recommend them all. And if you have any that you would highly recommend, let me know. I'd love to hear about new books and learn as much as I can. So I would love to hear your opinions and thoughts and recommendations. And this probably will be the last video I'll do before the new year. So I hope you guys have a great holiday, whatever you're doing, however you're celebrating. I hope you're blessed and that you're just able to spend a lot of very peaceful time with your family and friends. And I will see you hopefully in 2016. Okay, Merry Christmas.